Hi, folks. Welcome to the Moving Home Podcast. I'm Jay Norman, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jessie Norman. Just like many of you, Jay and I have both walked through some difficult seasons in our lives.
And we know just how easy it is to get stuck.
We now have 5 beautiful
and crazy
children, and because of everything we've been through, our home operates on grace.
A concept we didn't fully understand until way later on in life.
Until we actually needed it ourselves. We want to share through stories of love and laughter,
how we were moving on, and how big of a game changer grace can be.
in relationship with one another, and how we treat ourselves, and in our case, blending a family.
Something that may just require the largest amount of grace to date.
Preach.
You never know what road life's going to take you on. We have a podcast.
Yes, we do, and we really hope y'all enjoy it.
Well, today we're recording episode 7, and we sit down, I look down, and there's something on the table, and
I had left myself a Reese's peanut butter egg to reward myself for...
just a little stash for recording 7.
No, 6.
Oh, 6.
To record 6, and I forgot. And it's still sitting there unwrapped.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was when we sat down, so I'm glad to know it's chocolate.
Chocolate was waiting on me for 7.
Yeah, so we've sat down, and she's adjusted my mic for me, so we're ready to go.
Yes,
ready to go.
I knew better.
Yeah.
You just looked like you looked uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
this week we've had different comments from people, and several asking about going through, possible separation and divorce, and what they're dealing with as far as with their ex-spouse or about to be ex-spouse, and
right.
what they're going through with kids and how to handle it, and basically asking us, or saying, we want what y'all have, but we're not ever going to get there. And
right.
I guess we just want
feeling
to,
discouraged.
we want to lay it out that, it hasn't always been perfect, and talk about how we got to where we're at. And we're not perfect. I mean,
No.
we're still trying to get there by a long shot, but we've had a lot of improvement and learned from this process for sure.
Right. You sound like Barry White.
I do.
Yes.
I'm a little froggy today.
So going back to our week, we had spring break for like 11 days. And then as soon as we sent the kids back to school, corn plant started. So Jay's been putting in a bunch of hours on the tractor, and we haven't really seen each other, and our recording is later than normal.
A little off target.
Yeah, so hopefully we get this out on time. But if not, it's okay. Life happened, and here we are finally.
Got to get the corn planted.
Yes, so how did it go?
It went good. It was a long week, but for being really muddy for, I guess, probably 5 months, it finally cleared up enough for us to run, and it sure wasn't all fun, but we got it done, and our crew put in a heck of a lot of work and did a really good job, so it's been a good week.
There were a few nights where they went home at 1 in the morning and were coming back around 6 or so.
Yeah, and that one ran till 6 o'clock in the morning one night, so.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
They've all been so amazing. I asked Jay if there were any grumblings or, any comments, and there weren't any. They're just always ready to work.
Yeah, it's been a slow few months, so I think everybody was sitting on ready for sure.
I think so. It's been neat to get on Instagram and see. It's all the same exact either picture or video of the glass on the planter.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to see all of them, because a lot of those are our customers also. So we are really, really, when we say we're cheering everyone on, we really are.
Well, and it's just fun to get in that tractor seat and go and do what you do.
I'm in the works of designing a better wife seat, because it is so bad. The driver's seat is really on point. It's on springs, and it's really comfy.
Air ride.
A what?
Air ride.
Air ride, and it's like sitting in your living room. It's so nice when Jay gets out of the tractor to do something. I'm always so excited to get to sit in it. Oh, dear. But as nice as it is how bad the extra seat is.
It's called the buddy seat.
The buddy seat. There's another word for it, but we can't say it on here.
Not so great.
No. But you do feel like one of those when you sit in it, because it is so uncomfortable. So I like to fold it down and kind of roll up some sweatshirts and sit on top of it. But I think if I could design something for wives, we would be a lot more apt to ride with y'all longer.
Yeah, definitely need some kind of pad or a little better seat.
I'm sure it exists, huh? Or you think I could do it?
I think you just have to do it.
Do you think so?
There you go.
Okay.
Make it pink or something.
No, we'll figure something out.
We had kind of a neat situation, too, this week. We were planting, and our neighbors got started, and we came to a four-way stop there in the little community where we all lived, and I was sitting in a tractor going southbound and had another one sitting at the other stop sign going westbound and another one sitting across going northbound. It was pretty neat for us to all be there. We had a little confusion for a while.
And someone had just gone through, Kenny or...
Yeah, we had another planter just going right ahead of us, and there was about 15 cars behind me and one's behind them, so it was kind of chaos for about 3 minutes, but it was fun to see.
My heart wants to recreate it because I want a picture of it. I want a drone picture of a planter at each stop, at that four-way stop. I think that would be pretty great.
Yeah, we were just all looking at each other. It was kind of strange. It was fun. That was a first for me, too. So
that was funny. One night, my main job was to be Jay's tail lights. So when he had to move to a different field, I had to drive behind him because our lights were out.
Yeah, we had a little mechanical problem and had any flashers on the back. So.
Yeah, that was my job.
Yep. So tell us your story from earlier this week.
Which one?
Well, you just had a friend that asked you, and it's kind of what spurred this conversation.
Oh, yes. I had a friend that was, I've had, this actually has come up with a few different friends where they've said, I want what you guys have. I'm in such a bad place. There's no path that leads from where I am to where y'all are. And that is pretty sad. It's probably the worst thing for me to hear is because that's why we are here, is because we want to tell everyone we were there or deeper, way deeper in the mud.
Well, and I think that was personal and with kids too, right?
Yes. For me, yeah. And I don't know about for you, I'll let you.
Well, I'm saying for both of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why we're here is just to tell everyone this is where we were. It was lower than low, bottom of the barrel, bottom of the pit. And so why we have this podcast is that pit was so lonely and full of despair. And I remember thinking, first, there's no way I'm getting out of here. And second, if I ever do, I'm going to have just the worst life imaginable. There's no up from here. There's just not. There's nothing left. Then to be where we are now, it does look like a hard jump, but that's why we want to speak to others, is because we want others to know that we were there and we got here. And there's nothing special about us. And we want to be able to turn back and either grab rope and go help get the others out, or we want to be a voice for how we did it. And so when I hear friends say, our situation is so different, we can't have what you guys have, it's important for me to go back.
Right. And it is important to go back and revisit it and figure out what we learned from it. And I think a lot of ours comes from the way you look at stuff and the way you analyze stuff, because it always starts our conversation. And that's how, over time we've had these conversations and gone back and looked at what we did and how it helped or how it didn't help. And I think that's what has spurred a lot of this for sure.
That's what we talk about a lot, is what helped us when we were there? What did people say to us that helped? And what would we have wanted to know then that we know now?
Or, what did we want them to say, or what would we like to heard? Yeah.
Right. The hard stuff.
Right, yeah.
When I was growing up, I had just a really, really nice mom and just an encouraging dad. And so we were just really taught to be nice and to be kind and to be sweet. My mom used to just say, be sweet. I heard that so many times. So that's where I get, my nature is to be nice. It's just how I was raised. It's how I saw my mom behave. It's how, that was the norm for our home. But what I want to ask you, because I don't think, now knowing your family and knowing who you are, I wouldn't think that that's how you were raised.
Right.
As a boy in the farming community, I bet you weren't told once, you be sweet.
Well, I wasn't told you be sweet, but my mom probably told me thousands of times, if you don't have something nice to say, then just don't say anything at all.
I like that.
The only thing she told me more than that was to say yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and put the pot lid down. That's the only thing she told me more than that.
Put the pot lid down.
Yeah.
And so what I want to know is, where do you think you got this, where you are able to drop the rope, you are able to overlook being slighted? Where do you think that you even got that?
I think it comes from my dad.
Your dad.
He's really, really laid back. Never remember him saying negative about anybody. Never remembering gossiping about anybody. He always just sat back and listened, and that's what I've learned, over time, from him is to sit back, listen. You're going to find out the information you need to find. Things are going to work out. And I think that passed probably from his mother. She was super positive and always said, things are going to work out. They always have, and they always will. And I think he took that and then just a quiet nature. He just doesn't say a whole lot all the time. And I think that quiet nature allowed me to be able to sit back and not struggle with those things and be able to just take them for what they are.
When you describe your dad, it would be a way that I would describe you. So I know that y'all are very similar, but like we were talking in last episode, how attractive you are to the kids because you don't let yourself get away from you often. And so they are attracted to you because there isn't a whole lot of that extreme irrational emotion. There was something that our pastor said this week that it just made me think of you when he said it. When you love your opinions more than you love others, you lose influence. And I was sitting there listening to him, and I was like, that's why Jay does have so much influence, is because those two things aren't even in the same ballpark. His love for others and his love for getting his opinion heard. You fighting someone into submission with your opinions, it's just not who you are.
Yeah.
And so that is something, we took on last Sunday and we just started passing on to the kids. I would look at them and I would go, look, we were playing a board game
Right.
and they're getting ugly. And I said, look, this is something that we're going to start practicing more and more and more is if he says one thing and you feel the exact opposite, you don't have to tell him that you do.
Right.
It can just stay right in your own heart. You can talk to God about it in your head. You can even use cuss words if you want to in your head. I don't mind. But I do want you to know that it doesn't always have to be out loud.
Yeah, they just leave it unsaid. It's gone in 10 seconds on something like that.
Yeah, it is funny how quickly it passes
Yeah.
if you'll just allow it to pass.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to have the self-control to be able to just sit back and allow, a little bit of time to pass and it just goes on. And it's what I always say on here. It really, it doesn't amount to anything.
I heard on a podcast this week talking about the way that you can practice those things. So if you really can start keeping a tally in your head of she said one thing or he said one thing and I wanted to say something and I didn't.
Yeah.
That's 1 point for me. Our pastor last week said you're not ever going to argue someone into seeing your point. And his thing was more for Facebook, the political stuff that
Right.
goes on Facebook. And he was like, have you ever heard someone, in an argument be like, you know what, you're right. I should now think that way as the right side or the left side. Nothing ever comes of it. It's an argument and it's an explosion. And that's what my mom told me when I was little, very little, is you're never going to argue someone into seeing it your way.
Yeah.
It has to come from such a different direction.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we have learned. It's actually something we're going to talk on the next episode, forms of communication that can be healthy and peaceful and successful instead of causing someone to pick up their end of the rope, which can happen so quickly.
That little mini drop of the rope, I guess you'd call it by not calling somebody out or saying something like that. It's something we've worked on with our kids. I mean, get them while they're younger, and I think they'll get along a lot better when they get older if they're not picking each other all the time and with each other.
Well, sure. And on a side note, as step-parents, sometimes we are painted into a corner where we aren't really allowed to say what we want to say.
Right.
You're very good at communicating and disciplining my children. You've gotten to a good space, but I'm not comfortable just yet disciplining the kids, your children. And so there have been a lot of times over the past 2 years where we did want to say something to the other person's child and we didn't feel right to.
Right.
And so that's been a really good practice.
Right. Well, I think the kids, and I think us, and then I think it goes all the way to our exes and using that same thing when we're having conversations, about things that need to be talked about.
Right. So, what is something when you were in your pit or you were in the mud? What is something that was told to you that you're just really thankful that that person said?
I think for me, one of the biggest ones is over the kids and being told, that they're resilient and that they're going to be fine. It's not going to be easy, but ultimately they will be fine, and they still will love you, and they're going to come back full circle, and they're going to be fine from all this as long as you're a loving parent. And there was a lot of times that was hard to fathom that was true because your mind at that time doesn't want you to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately it is true. I mean, it's come full circle, and the kids still love us like crazy, and our relationship is good and gets better. I mean, we've still got teenagers and still dealing with with all the things you deal with, but ultimately the base is there.
Right. I think you really do have to pay attention to them and their actions to get your answers.
Well, and one other thing I didn't say too, and that was along the line with the kids, but when you're talking about ex-spouse is that being 100% positive about that parent.
About the other parent.
Not only to the kids, but to everybody. People said, just whatever you do, just, be positive. Don't say anything negative about the other parent. And just, you have to be really disciplined to do that. And I think that's a big part of the relationship you have with your kids. And for sure, a big part of the relationship, with your ex-spouse. And it's not all perfect. It's still a work in progress, but that's definitely a huge part of it. And just being supportive of them if they make a decision for the kids. If they make a decision, whether it's sports or school, even if you don't agree, agree with them in front of the kids just like you would, with your spouse. And then if you have a problem with it, discuss it after that because it needs to be a united front, even with your ex-spouse and your spouse, for sure.
Communication is so big, right?
Yeah.
I know it reminds me, it was real fresh. We had just gotten married and we were at a basketball game. I think it was for one of my littles. And I was sitting with my ex-husband. We've always had a very good relationship from the first moment that we got divorced. And so I was sitting with him and we were watching one of our littles. And Jay walked into the gym and my ex-husband walked out of the gym. And my oldest little girl burst into tears. And I'm a pulse reader, so some of my children are pulse readers. I want to say both girls are, but you know what? Cash may be too, because if I'm ever kind of stressed, I always get this little chubby hand on my cheek. Right. So I think all three of mine maybe are right now. But anyway, so I talked to Jay and I said, I think I'm going to go, if you don't mind, I'm going to go talk to my ex-husband and Lily. And so the game was over. Jay watched my little kids, and we went and sat at a card table outside the gym. And it wasn't like my ex-husband was angry. He just didn't want to be 2 seats down from my husband. And so we sat down, and I just knew we just needed it to get out. We needed all of it out in the open. And I said, Lily, we went over the situation, and I know in our family we use a lot of humor. And so I said, you know what? Daddy loves you. Mama loves you. Jay loves you. Daddy hates Jay. And she just burst into laughter and Dusty just died laughing. And we got to have a good laugh and we talked about it some more. And I said, so let's go back over it, and went back over it. And I was like, I love Jay. Daddy hates Jay, And so we were able to just be open about it that, you can be okay if 2 people that you love don't want to go fishing together. It's going to be fine. And you might not have the same situation as maybe your friend. But this is our situation right now, and it doesn't mean it won't ever change. This is just where we are right now, and we're going to be fine. And we're just always going to talk about it with each other. But I do know with my ex-husband and I, we've always been able to talk about everything.
Yeah.
So that's been so helpful for the kids. We knew how important that was for the kids.
I remember a lot of situations, and for me, what I remember on another side of that is just whenever we would get ready to leave, it would be them telling me bye, or if we were just getting to them and telling me hi, they would look at their daddy and look at me to tell me hi. And I was fine with it. It didn't hurt my feelings at all.
I wasn't.
I wouldn't want them to be, I just didn't want them to have to worry about it. You don't have to say anything to me.
Right.
I'm fine. But
I
they
wasn't.
struggled with it. And what I was going to say is that's one thing that if I was giving anybody advice, and one thing I would brag on you about that you have done since we've been married, is been very proactive when there was a situation that was, it didn't really matter about me or Dusty. It was more about, where it affected the kids, and you're really proactive to go to him and say, look, I need you to, is there any way you can talk to them and fix this? And like in that situation, you talked to him the next day, said, hey, they're really uncomfortable saying hi and bye. And he immediately told them, it's fine. Don't worry about, Dad's going to be fine. And, that went away. And so, by giving somebody advice, I just say, be proactive like what you've done, because it's definitely, been a game changer. I haven't been as good at it, still not as good at it, but trying to learn it and do it.
I'm aware that I'm the wife in this story. There's a lot of emotion that comes with us. It's easier for the wife, it's easier for me as a woman to go to him, because I remember that night, and I just remember thinking, my children this is not healthy. I witnessed what happened with them. They looked at someone, that they loved so much and trust so much, and they acted like they didn't know you. And I was like, nope, So I talked to Dusty, and I was like, Dust, when you're around, they're thinking that they're not allowed to even know who he is, and this is not correct. This is not real life. This is not healthy. This is not Christ-like. Nothing. No matter what you feel towards Jay, our children are not allowed to be ugly and un-Christ-like to people. They're just not. And so if you want to strip it down to those bare bones with your kids, you can. To our listeners, I say that no matter what you feel towards your wife's new husband, or no matter what you feel towards your husband's new wife, your children shouldn't be allowed to be ugly to people in general. We're still trying to raise good citizens of the community, good people. And I didn't think that that's what my children were doing. They were just very uncomfortable. And say it happened on a Tuesday, we had a talk on Wednesday, and by Thursday, they were running up to jump in his arms in front of their dad.
Yeah.
So just that little release from their dad was so big. And I know that with friends that have gone through divorces, I've heard judges from the stand say, you have to tell your children it's okay to love them.
Yeah.
And because the parents really do hold the key. And you're not ever going to fight that person. Like, you better tell them to love them. You know what I mean? It has to come from a place of love and a place of humility.
Right.
And we'll be here until you feel comfortable to do that. But we just need you. We need you to be.
It's not always going to be even on each side either, as as we know, and it may be a work in progress for the other side. But ultimately, I think it's the right path to take, and it's a good path to take, and it definitely, for me as a step parent, it definitely made that easy, because it's not that I'm uncomfortable. I just hate to see them be uncomfortable.
Yes, right. Going back to what we've heard this month from friends, just saying, there's no way we'll have what y'all have because we have ex-spouses that are very ugly or very not on board with this whole peaceful thing. And so what would you tell those folks about that?
Well, I think number one, you got to be your own person and not get drug into all that. I think you just got to stay consistent on what we were talking about. I think you got to be that positive parent, and no matter how down and dirty it gets, you just stay where you're at. If you don't have nothing nice to say, just keep your mouth shut, or think of something nice to say and make it work. Because
ultimately, throughout the entire process, we've only been in charge of ourselves.
Right.
That's something else our pastor has said, and I've said it in one of the earlier episodes, is the only way to have peace is to be at peace ourselves.
Right.
To be peaceful parts of the equation.
Well, the opposite of that is just going to elevate any situation. So you may not get your way and may not get the answer you want, but ultimately you're not elevating it.
And I just know that all of the energy that we take, I don't know about you guys, but we do a lot of talking amongst ourselves. And so I just feel like all of the energy we take to tell a girlfriend what the ex did or tell a girlfriend what the kids did. Definitely on social media, I'm seeing so much of people pouring their hearts out of how they were mistreated by their ex or how they were mistreated by their new stepson. And then 80 comments later that you don't deserve that and how dare they. And, it's this whole hate support group on social media. And I just feel like all of those efforts, if you could just ball it up into now using that effort to become who you're wanting to become. Because no matter what my stepchildren are told by anyone on the other side, if I'm who I need to be in Christ, they're going to be attracted to me the way they are attracted to you. And we're seeing that every time we're with them. One of them, I think she said my name 30 times between carpool and going to sleep, telling me this and what happened at school and look at my new pants and did you see my shoes and did you hear what happened at PE? And I just think if I stay away from the negative and I stay off of that platform of I have been mistreated and wait till you hear what they did, or I just feel like we can have a way healthier relationship.
And that brings me to another line of thought along that too, is that's very hard to do, is being consistent at that, being a consistent, parent, being a consistent step-parent, being a consistent ex-spouse, and, where life gets in the way in a bad day or whatever, and trying to stay that course. Like if you're having an argument with an ex over a kid doing something and you had a bad day, just not letting that get in the way of being that positive person.
Yep, I do. I struggle with that.
Yeah, that consistency is probably the hardest thing of all of it. It really is.
It is, because there were times over spring break where we had your kids, but we didn't have mine. So that tends to make me miss mine more. Right. It's gotten so much better. I remember the first time that happened, It was just agony. Just wanted to sit on the floor and cry because my kids weren't here, because your kids miss them and I miss them. And they're just huge beacons for that they're not here, And but as you let it go, as you walk through it and let it hurt and get to the other side, it gets a lot better. But there were tendencies where over spring break where you just kind of be like, well, I'll let Jay have some time with the kids and I'll go to Target. Yeah. And that, that's fine. Do it. But I tell you what, if you will just get out of the way of yourself and go spend that quality time with those kids by yourself. I got time with the kids, with you and with them without my children, which allowed me to actually delve in deeper with them. Right. And one of yours went with us on a girls' day the other day. And just that 5-6 hours did so much for our relationship than ever before. Right. For me, if I'm going somewhere on the regular to a space that my mom or my dad is hated or disliked, or if I'm going to stay there, I'm not going to be comfortable there. To us, in our home, I feel like the safest space possible for our 5 children is a space where their mom and dad are honored. And so we learned that in the very beginning. And it's not easy. You don't really want framed pictures of the other parent around the home. But if it helps the children, that's what has to be. In our home, that's how it is. And we have to create a space where when they're talking about their other parent, we're not secretly rolling our eyes or shooting a look at my husband or him at me, where we are asking questions. Like if they're talking about their mom and dad, jumping into the conversation and going, oh my gosh, that is so, that's so nice that he did that, or that's so nice that she did that. I know you're so good to ask my kids if they've called their dad, or how was dad, or, because we are trying to practice this. With Jay's kids, their mom has, like laundry detergent and linen spray, or, things that she creates at home. And so we've always made sure that those things are a part of our home. And I remember the first time I was back in the little girl's room And both of Jay's children burst through the door of the room. And we were doing fine. Our relationship was doing fine, but we definitely weren't where we are now, of course. It was in the early stage. And I was really just trying to stay out of their way. And they burst in the room and they were like, Jesse, that's our mom's laundry detergent. Where did you get it? Do you know that that's our mom's? That's our mom's. And they were just going on and on and on. And just these huge smiles and jumping off the bed and yelling at me these things. And did you know that was it? That's hers. And they were just so proud of her and proud of it. And it just flipped a switch that day. Like, okay, this is where we're going. No. This is the key. I found it right then. This is the key, that the best way to love on my kids and to draw them in close in the healthiest way is to honor their parent in our home. Right. So now we kind of look for ways to do that. Right.
Well, and I think that's even for, if it's the stepmom or stepdad, yeah. Either way, I think you've got to do it for both sides and be consistent with that too. And it can't be negative on any of it.
No, it can't. And I bet you we have so many listeners saying, the heck I would do that. Yeah. You don't know what this person has caused in my life. And to that, I would say, yes, we do. Yeah. We know. We know all of it. We've heard it. We've been through it. We know all of it. We just decided to leave all of that behind.
Yeah, just leave it where it was at and move on and get to a better place for ourselves with them and ultimately allow our kids to get to a better space.
Right.
And something we talked about too that we've experienced and seen is letting a kid move up, mm-hmm. with a parent when you're single and become part of the equation as like an adult in it and start throwing in opinions and all that kind of stuff. And
right.
That's something we've seen and we heard about this week. A girl had a daughter that was pretty well, demanding she do a certain thing or not do a certain thing. Mm-hmm. And we just found that's got to be both parents working on that to squish that deal because it's just not correct.
Well, I messed up in the beginning. I was so insecure in the beginning of our marriage because I had never been married to a husband that had a woman that was very important in his life, which is the mother of your children is a very, very important part of your life. And so being insecure, I threw many tantrums in the beginning. This makes me feel gross. I don't want this. And, after I got through it and realized that the way I had demanded those things, the kids were suffering. And I've apologized to Jay so many times about this, but it's like sometimes you really just do have to be an adult and get out of the way, throw your tantrum if you need to, and apologize and pick up. We can't go back there.
No. I think the hardest part is just realizing it, what you are doing.
It is hard for me because I can get so guilt-ridden. So when I see maybe y'all's relationship isn't as healthy as maybe Dusty and I's, it makes me feel so guilty that I had a hand in that. But what we had to do is just pick up right where we are and apologize to Jay, and step into the role that we're supposed to step into, because ultimately communication is so key. In all of your relationships, if you let your relationship get strangled with the lack of communication, there's just nothing there to work with. And the reason I'm saying all of this is, in the beginning, I was very uncomfortable about the communication. And so children were lifted up to a different level because there wasn't a phone call with you or a text with you. Right. It was a text to a kid. And then, you know what I mean? The kid was brought up into the chain. And we see that happen in the majority of our friends that have gotten divorced, where if the children have phones, they're now used as little linkers, little communicators.
And sometimes you don't always get the correct message either.
Right. You get a message that they want.
Or somebody gets a message that's totally not what you meant. So
Yeah, the kids, I was raised by, and I think you were too, I was raised by very traditional parents. And so we didn't have a hand in anything.
No.
I mean, we knew better, going even back to simple as getting in the car, we knew better to even ask where we were going. It was sit back and we'll tell you when we get there. The parents were the parents and we were the kids. And I think in this society, the children are really losing sight of their role in the family just because they are holding a cell phone that has a direct link to the world. And amidst the high prevalence of this divorce rate being brought up to now their partner status.
Right.
And that's not something that's so prevalent in our home, but it's something we've seen in others.
Well, once you set that precedent, it's hard for them to back up when it does change.
Yes. I know one time someone asked, because my ex-husband and I, we've always had a really good relationship. And so someone was asking, why? How have y'all done that? And I always used to joke, we're just two nice people that got divorced. Because there just never was, there just wasn't anything there for. I just divorced a very nice man.
No huge animosity.
No, we've only had some moments, but probably you can count them on one hand. It is hard to stay there. It is hard because there's so many things that are thrown at you. But if you can just step into who you're supposed to become as a confident, strong individual that's not swayed or smashed by the waves of what's going on, because the healthier you are, the healthier your children will be. I saw a meme this week that just said, heal yourself and you heal your children's children. And I just think if that needs to be your only reason to start heading upward with yourself, that's a huge one, right?
It is. And I think a lot of this goes back to, I say it a lot, it just goes back to work. I mean, you have to work, we have to work on our relationship, but we have to work on our relationship with our exes. We have to work on our relationship with our children. And if you're lazy and not proactive, I think it's gonna come back and bite you in the butt. And it's easy, it's really easy to sit back and not do anything and not work on it. And I think that's where you've done really well, is being super proactive and not lazy and working on it. But I think that's a hard part of it, is to be, not only be consistent in how you act, but just be consistent about trying to make it better.
I think that practice is huge. It's just like anything else, with food or working out. Your relationships take work, and it's easier. We have friends that have different setups where they weren't able to talk, directly to the spouse. So maybe the new spouse communicates with the other new spouse. And yes, that works, and maybe that's healthy, but it's really just comes down to you really just do need to find a way to talk,
Well, and ultimately, these people are going to be in your life, really forever.
Yeah, definitely.
So you got to fix it.
Yeah, you do. So I guess what I just want to finish up with today is just, if there's anything that you guys ever want to talk about, we're here. That's why we've thrown our hat in the ring, is we have a whole network of friends that got us out of our pits, each of our pits. And we want to be those people that run for rope and come back and get you out. And so several friends have said, well, we don't want to bother you, or we don't want to take your time, or that's what my time is for. Jay is a farmer and of course, he is working nonstop, but he's there for the guys in these equations. And so I know Jay's heart. Jay is ready to be that person, and I am ready to be that person. And so if you need to come sit in front of me with a glass of wine and say 1,000 words while I sit there and listen, that's just what we're ready to do, because I think that's what we needed when we were there.
No, I think we all got to be ready for it.
Don't you think?
For a friend, for sure.
We all assume that we're all so busy, and maybe we are, but that's really, you being busy is just not going to be healthy for your relationships. And so we all need to be a little bit more comfortable asking each other for help, Because I think the loneliness and the despair and the depression is coming from not asking for help.
Yeah, we want to be able to be there for somebody and be able to answer that text or take that call for sure, because we've been in the position we needed them.
I know Jay has come from a very private space. I didn't even know Jay was going to do this podcast with me, and not once did I ever manipulate him into it. I always just kindly said, I can do this alone. It wouldn't have been near as good, but I can do this alone. But if you would want to, I would love it. And I knew that it was really hard for him. Well, because he's a big old burly farmer talking about his feelings and his thoughts on things, and that cannot be easy whatsoever. But to me, the most brilliant part about it is, because we have a lot of little brothers out there, a lot of little brothers in the farming community and here in our town, and I hope that the men out there realize that this isn't easy for Jay, and so if it doesn't feel easy to you, that's normal. Let's start a conversation to where we can make it a little bit more normal to talk about the things that have got us down. So anyways, that's just something really important for us, because we always throw around, I'm here when you need, or call me when you need me, or what can I do? And we really do mean that.
What else you got, babe?
I think that's it, babe.
All right. Well, as the song says, the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
And I love you too.
We sure appreciate y'all listening today. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can search for us, Moving On Podcast. That's 3 words. On Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you. With ways you're figuring out how to drop the ropes in each of your own lives, and even ways that you're not, hell, that's just as entertaining to us. See you in a couple of weeks.